Hey guys. Okay, so in this week's video, we're going to talk about heritage places. Note, I did say heritage place, not traditional building character overlay. Heritage places are a lot more unique than TBC sort of properties. More specifically, I want to talk about local listed places, not state listed places. And even more specifically, I want to talk about the different pathways you can go down when it comes to lodging an application or trying to get approval from council for work to these properties. Why? Well, number one, there's been quite a few changes within this space recently, and there's about to be another wave of changes, so I kind of wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. But also, I can't seem to escape heritage places at the moment. Like, I don't know what's going on out there. It feels like every man and his dog who owns a heritage place, they're suddenly renovating. I think I've got like 8 different jobs on the go at the moment for heritage listed places, which is a ridiculously high number. So yeah, I thought, hey, the world or the universe is screaming at me. This has to be this week's video topic. So what do you need to know? Well, when it comes to the heritage assessments, you essentially, and again I stress, I'm talking about local, not state. When it comes to these properties, there's essentially 4 different pathways you can go down. Now, the first one is a new pathway, which is about to be introduced in mid-June. Now, it's going to be called the GEC, or General Exemption Certificate. Now, we're still waiting for some information to be released, some sort of fact sheets and all of that sort of stuff. But from what I've heard through my secret squirrel sort of sources, is essentially it's going to cover like-for-like repairs. So in situations where you might want to pop off some roof sheeting, some metal roof sheeting because it's all worn and weathered and all of that sort of stuff, and you just want to pop on some metal sheeting back, that in theory is going to be covered by this process. Now, the key points to notice here, like-for-like. So we're talking like-for-like in terms of material, so you can't go timber windows for metal windows, like-for-like in terms of proportion, so you can't go changing the size of the windows, and like-for-like in terms of style. So again, if I use windows as an example, if they're sash windows and they open up, you've got to go sash windows that open up. So it's a very narrow scope of work that is going to fit within this GEC process. But in theory, if you tick the box for the GEC process, you don't need to go through an approval process. It's kind of like a automatic get out of jail type pathway. Now, the next step up from that is HEC, Heritage Exemption Certificate. Now, these things used to be our absolute go-to. Like, I used them for everything, especially where you were triggering impact assessment, which is one of the other options I'll get to in a sec, when you're triggering impact assessment for really minor demolition work. So we used to use the HEC to cover the demolition, to avoid the impact assessment, bump it back down to code assessment, and then do a code assessable application for the balance works. Like, that was our go-to move. Unfortunately, 12 months ago, whatever it was, council cracked down within this space. I was like, how am I going to describe this one? They've cracked down within this space. And now to qualify for a HEC, it basically needs to be standalone work. So you can't go, okay, we're going to do the demolition here under the HEC, but then do the addition over here under the code assessable application. It all needs to be one independent little thing. And you obviously need to be able to, I shouldn't say obviously, you need to be able to demonstrate that you're not impacting on the value of the heritage place as a result of that independent little blob of work. Technical terms here. So the example I'd give you is, let's say you've got a 1900 grand old house and you've got some kitchen cabinetry that was whacked in the 1980s, in the 1980s. You want to rip that out and put some new cabinetry in, but you're not touching the walls, you're not touching floors, you're not doing anything there. You're just doing a simple little swapsy game. That would be something, normally, which would, I need coffee. Let's keep pushing on. I'm going to make this happen. I've got too much to do today. I can't stop. Okay, so that would be something that in theory would qualify for a HEC because it's independent, it's not associated with the value, etc., etc. Now, if you don't qualify for HEC, which, as I suggested just before, is becoming harder and harder to do, the next step up is a code assessable application. Now, the problem with the code assessable application is you cannot do any demolition work. The minute you do any demolition work, even to non-original stuff that is just so clearly not valuable, you bump up to impact assessment. Impact assessment means advertising, which means you're roughly another $1,500 in advertising fees, sign on the front of the property, registered letters to the neighbours, advertisement in the local newspaper, and you trigger the extra partial demolition fee of roughly $3,000. So you're basically looking at almost $5,000 in extra fees, plus the hassle of having to go through the advertising process, the scrutiny, all of that sort of stuff, the second you have any demolition work. Now, I've got an example here from a job at the moment, which just puts this totally in perspective, so I wanted to give it. Basically, it's a small little house, used to be a fibro house. At some stage, they've jacked it up and they've put weatherboard cladding around the entire house. Now, we want to come along and just pop off 2 little weatherboards because we want to slip some flashing in there for waterproofing, and then we're going to put those weatherboards back, assuming they don't crack. For argument's sake, let's just say they're not going to crack. So yeah, we're going to pop off these boards temporarily and then put the boards back once the flashing's been inserted underneath. Yeah, that's demolition. No way around it. It is technically, as much as I've looked at every different angle, it is technically demolition. So we technically trigger the additional almost $5,000 in fees, the advertising process, all of that mess. Like, ugh, I just look at it and I'm like, why can't we use HEC for independent stuff again, guys? Like, this just makes it so much harder. So yeah, basically, just to recap, we got the new process, which is the GEC, coming into effect in roughly a week, just over a week's time. In theory, from what I've heard, that's going to cover like-for-like repairs, but it's a very narrow focus in terms of what like-for-like means. You got the HEC, which we've always had, but the scope, again, common theme, becoming very narrow in terms of what you can get approved through the HEC. Has to be independent, clearly not touching any valuable components, blah, blah, blah. Then you got the code accessible application, but you can't include any demolition, even just temporarily popping off some weatherboards to pop them back on, non-original weatherboards. Unfortunately, the minute you do any demolition work, bumps it up to impact assessment. Just can't avoid it. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're lodging an application, you do need a HIA, Heritage Impact Assessment. Those things typically cost at least $5 or $6 grand for a bare basic sort of one. So, moral of the story, I guess, point I'm trying to get across in this week's video is there has been a lot of changes in this space, but generally speaking, those changes are becoming a lot more restrictive. And as a result, there's a lot more cost and time associated with renovating these heritage places. Which, I guess we could sit here and debate whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not going to open that can of worms. I see positives and negatives. Let's save that discussion for another day. I think that covers off everything I want to talk about today. As I always say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got 3. Number 1, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number 2, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.